of health to try and put proper structure, I should say, right now in regard to the collections of those levies at the end of the month. So here we are, and we're questioning ourselves, will we have enough time for public participation? The Parliament is in recess right now. Will there be called upon for special sitting regarding this particular act as it stands right now, so that it can go on both bicameral houses, and ultimately we have now a decision moving forward with proper legislation, as it were. And it seems we're not really agreeing on as far as the public participation is concerned, and this is where we want just to wind up on it before we gravitate to other issues as well regarding the G2G, that was government to government on the oil deal with UAE. So let's just bring it to a close. I think it is Honorable Mugatana.
That Senate, I think we are resuming on the 12th.
On the 12th.
And I think National Assembly is 13th, 15th? If I'm not wrong. 13th.
It's 13th.
That's when the full House will resume. But for this type of...
but I wanted to know, is there any likelihood that you might be...
So that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
For regulations, you don't need a special sitting.
You don't need that.
It is just a committee sitting. Because it's the Delegated Legislation Committee of the Senate and of the National Assembly. So we don't need a recall of the House. They can just, it's just a request to the Speaker, which is done by the Chair, that we be allowed to sit. Because normally the committees sit, like you have correctly mentioned, even several committees are actually operational with the permission of the Speaker, like now the one that is tackling affordable housing, it's going around collecting views. So that doesn't need a special sitting. The thing is, if you look at all the procedural steps that need to be taken, and I want to urge the CS to just do the right thing, not to rush it because it will end up in court. I remember when we were doing the Mirror regulations with Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi. They kept on coming to us and going, at the Senate until we agreed. And then when we had agreed with them, when we went to the National Assembly, it was easy, a smooth ride, and then they published the regulation. It becomes very easy. But when you go and publish before you come to the delegated legislation, you'll have only one option. If we find one mistake, the whole thing falls again. So there's no point of rushing it. Just come with a draft. We look at it, and then you take it to the National Assembly Committee also on delegated legislation. They look at it, and then when you have combined our views, you can publish. And when you publish in that manner, plus public, because when the first thing we will ask you when you come is, have you conducted public participation? And let us have the evidence of it. The second thing, is this law against the Constitution? Is this law against the Parent Act? Those are things we look at. And then we look at how you want to implement the Parent Act, whether it is against public interest. Public interest is also an issue. So after we discuss, we tell you improve here. You get the views of the senators in delegated legislation. You go to the National Assembly, get their views. When you bring that piece of legislation, now it will be a smooth, easy ride, those regulations. But I don't see it happening within January. I think most likely it will happen in the month of February, somewhere
towards the end, picking up in March.
So they'll probably start charging at the end of February.
But let's go through the brackets of the charges as we know it, just different tiers. Earning $1 million, you'll be charged almost 27,000 to 30,000. 500,000 coming down to around 13,000, right? How then do we as public also put the government to the test and the feet on the fire in regard to services that are of quality to these deductions? And what is the turnaround time that we expect quality service when it comes to healthcare from this government health facilities? Because now we cannot put accountability on how my 27,000 is being used, my 13,000 is being used, and every month is being deducted.
Correct.
Right. So will I be also having challenges that I cannot access, even maybe the pharmaceutical services, the medicine,
the medical
equipment is not there within the counties? Because when we're speaking about this also, we're expecting a lot to be happening within a given time. So how then do you manage public expectation? Because I'm like, okay, you're telling me we are trying to put infrastructure, or this is the money which is being gotten right now to try and put the infrastructure. What will be the timelines? I mean, there's so many things and frogs that are really, juggling in the air that we need to put them into proper perspective.
Let me try.
Or given, of course, your docket as a director of medical services, maybe you can begin from
I know how difficult it is.
It is very difficult.
The one thing about the SHIF that I had a problem with was the transition clauses. The transition clauses were so abrupt that it becomes difficult to do things gradually, because the transition clauses, the Schedule 1, literally stopped NHIF and brought in SHIF. Now, with that situation, there is already money collected there. Now you are bringing a huge amount of money. So the transition clauses should have been given a gradual implementation.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Before you
so
continue,
now,
you raise a good point.
Yeah.
You raise a good point. I'll urge you to continue. So you see the stalemate that we are in. You've stopped NHIF.
Correct.
Now, if I go, I cannot access services because,
Yes.
What was the rhyme and reason for stopping NHIF? And before we had the proper structure of transitioning the SHIF so that people are not suffering. Don't you think this was ill-timed? Yeah, and
well, you are giving
because it's like you're stopping the flow of services so that you can actually bring these new services, and you don't have the proper legal framework around it, as they're trying to put it right now. And people are suffering.
I like that, because if you would go to ANSTAT, that was my biggest arguments against this law. Actually, there were two. One was that a transition clause that I thought was not well thought out, was not gradual enough to let things be organized. The second one was that the claims will now be handled by private institutions that are hired by SHIF. And I just felt uncomfortable that such a huge amount of money will go into the hands of you have to appoint private people to organize claims. Insurance, the mainstay of insurance is claims, because that is how you get money, you get your services paid for. If it's a car, that's how you get your car paid for if you have an accident, if it's death. So if that is now being given out to the private sector, I had a problem with that, and that again will have to be worked out very carefully. Luckily, we managed against a lot of opposition from the government side, but at least that was compromised. They were saying shall be outsourced. At least we brought it to say maybe. So again, depending on the whims of the executive and the regulations, again, that can take care of that. But then there's another law which is called, now you are coming to getting the service. So even if you have this money and you have these regulations, what you need are services that are working, that are paid for. Now, if the public services are not working, and if you're paying 27,000 a month, in your mind, you will say, if I took this a month and for a year and multiplied it, I can get private insurance that will actually give me very good. And people at that level will actually be unhappy. Now, they'll tell now, we must now say, then they can go to those private facilities and we must pay. We then must have a very clear system on how much will be paid in the private health facilities if we do not improve the public health facilities where most of our people go. And you will still have the problem we have now, that a lot of money from NHIF, it will happen with SHIF, unless we make these things the process is done properly, will still go to the private sector, which will cover fewer people. And then unfortunately, those who are in the higher level, because the private will insist on what is called co-payment, which means what your insurance cannot pay, you pay for. Or you have another insurance, you pay for. So again, what it therefore calls for, the BAL, we must move very fast and improve our health, public health institutions, so that we must have drugs there, we must have equipment there, we must have the health personnel there. And then you realize that at that level, it is a devolved function. So there is need for a very good, even in the regulation, structures of how this law at national level will be implemented. And that's one, the one law that they put at FIF, which Facility Improvement Fund Act, which is also another law here, it attempted to actually see how at county level, county health are managed by creating a county health management team. How at hospital level these are done. To my mind, as we rush with these collections, we should equally rush to get the FIF Act implemented.
All right.
And it will take time with in working together in cooperation with the county government.
All right.
Now look at the mess issue, this issue of equipment.
Yeah, indeed.
Right now, you see the contract ended, and now was the contract with the national government, with the county government. Now, suddenly the services have stopped. Now, the county government had to come together with the national government and work with the contractor and renew it on the understanding that 6 months, on the understanding that during that period, the national government takes the cost.
Yes.
Yes. So these are the details that need to be worked out before we actually think this huge money we are collecting, we will see its service. So to me, the big things they should be working in now is FIF.
The Facility Improvement Funds.
I would move, because even there, actually I'm pretending to actually get an amendment in it, because involvement again of the people at committee level in hospitals, I didn't see.
All right, we need to finalize on it briefly. Farah Malim, I know also your wife is a medic. I don't know what has been a sentiment regarding this HIF. Maybe you can also tell us. These are discussions about.
Let me tell you one thing. My wife is a medic. My son is a medic. My daughter, my other son is studying.
Only you.
You're the only one who.
I'm the only
And I know how it started. It started in my hands.
He's the one who trained the village.
Okay.
And Professor Macharia. The ENT surgeon, yeah. Okay, I can tell you one thing. I have seen the worst public health referral facility in this country transformed into the best within the shortest possible time. And so much so that the people of that town were not sending, the elite, the rich people, were not bringing their wives to come and deliver in Nairobi Hospital or in MP Shah or in Aga Khan, and the rest of them were delivering in that facility. Thanks to the support of Professor Nikal and others, the late Neme and the rest. That was Garissa PGH. From the worst, in the shortest possible time, it was transformed into the best. And I can tell you, every facility, public facility in this country has a potential of becoming as good as Nairobi Hospital, as good as what you call Aga Khan, as good as any private hospital. It's just that our people have never internalized that, and people who are dedicated, committed, corruption-free professionals are very few. I dare say he's one of those very, very few.
Thank you.
And they did a fantastic job. That being there, all I'm looking at right now is actually if I meet anybody from this government here, I'll tell him, although he's in ODM, he's in the opposition, call him and get his ideas. Get the ideas of some of my family members and see how you can transform this country into a model health country. I can tell you. And we have a problem in this country. We have a problem, a mindset problem of treating our wealth the same way we treated the wealth of the government at the colonial time. It belongs to the government. It's there to be robbed and raped like hell. And until we have active executive, what do you call, a system in which such people will end up in jail for the rest of their lives. I like it very much when a friend of mine was saying the other day, I think it was PLO Lumumba, he said in China, corrupt people are killed. In Japan, they commit suicide. In Europe, they end up in jail for the rest of their lives. In Kenya, they run for parliaments. And so until such a time that we see rich people sitting in committee for the next 2 decades, nobody is going to stop this what do you call, raping of this country. Right now, what we have is people are stealing left, right, and center, and very little. 10%, maximum 15% gets down to the people. When a project is given an allocation, I'll give you just one simple example. There was a dam which was being built in my constituency, and I asked somebody very honestly, came to him and asked him, what did you do? He said, the man who was in charge, I don't want to mention names because then he took 1.5 million shillings to give me a contract of 10 million. There was another engineer, he took his 1 million shillings. There was another place, they took $1.5 million. I had to come to the headquarters to pay somebody here. And I had to pay the VAT. So out of 10 million, less than 3 million, 2 million, less than 2 million went into the project, and I got just about $1 million as a profit. Now, that is 10% of the total amount that has been dedicated and committed. And here, Ministry does a good job. It says put up here, puts money in everywhere, allocates funds and everything else, but that funds never gets to people. And that goes for everything that's being done.
It's true.
Including CDF, including members of parliament.
True.
The number of, if you go online right now and carry out an exhaustive investigation on CDFs, you'll be surprised. Over 30% of all the money that's been allocated, over 40%, will be found to have ended up in people's pockets, and ghost projects are there everywhere. So until such a time that we deal with our mindset and we get a system that has a punitive, what do you call, manner in which it punishes such people, punishes them and punish them so bad so that they know that it's worthless. Because if you're going to spend 25 years in jail, it doesn't matter how much you steal. We will have a problem in this country. Whatever good intentions you come with, you can come up with the best intentions. We can have the best health, what they call a facility, but the system in place. We'll have all the money there for it, and we'll expect all Kenyans to get what do you call a premium, what do you call care. They will never get it, and the money will end up in people's pockets everywhere. So my own personal opinion is it can be done. Yes, I've seen it being done by him and a member of my family and many other people, the late Professor Meme, a good number of people, Professor Omamuga, good people who are there. But I've also seen it the way I was just describing right now.
Dilapidated. Right, let's hear from Mungatana, because so much money deducted, so much expectation of services.
That's the point.
Within what time? So how then do we manage the public expectation?
That's the point. I think Minister Nakumincha now has a grave responsibility, because she's going to collect billions, literally, billions from NHIF, which was charging people pittance, to real money, serious funds.
That you can transform completely.
And she needs to come up with a plan, because if she does not manage public expectation, this will even cost us politically. I mean, I'm saying us because we are in government. Because it will just need the politicians in opposition going to all the constituencies and our counties, asking them, wamechukua pesa yenu, have you seen any changes? No! And then there's no vote there. You see, so honestly and sincerely, Minister must manage those expectations very. And how do you do that? By, first of all, being slow in terms of implementation and collection of the funds. So let's go through the processes, as we have said, in Parliament, and then when those funds come out, tell us exactly how many billions you have. And then tell us, in this county, we will spend this amount of money. The expected outcomes are as follows. We will buy medical equipment we will build new facilities, we will do this and this and that, so that in the minds of Kenyans, over time, the change is gradual. But then if you take all this money, and everybody now is expecting now my local hospital, my local referral hospital in Hola, in Tana River, is going to give me CT scanning, is going to give me what. Then I go there, the implements are not there. And I have started paying. It's going to be very painful for this government. This thing might cost us dearly politically. And I know my friends who are in politics, who are old enough in politics, know that this is something that can actually bring us down. It is the sword of Damocles.
Boomerang, it can boomerang.
It can boomerang on us very badly politically if we are not managing it properly. So my appeal is that...
It can also take you to cloud 9.
Absolutely. If it is managed properly.
The pendulum can swing both ways.
Yes, it can go this way or that way, depending on how the minister gives the lead here and the technical team. So that we know the money is there, this is the amount that has been collected. We should expect this kind of facilities. The MES, the managed equipment services, this is how it's going to be in county A, B, C, D. This is what is going to happen with the workers. Maybe we are going to improve on adding more workers. This is what the health promoters are getting. We must see a lot of political management of the system. Because if this money is there and it fails to give the results, we are headed for trouble. So my appeal is that proper management of expectations, proper management of the politics of health must be done, because it goes to the mama mboga wa kule kijijini.
So how much premium of trust do we place on this administration? Because we've had previously issues and promises from government with the COVID billionaires, money that were just went down through the tubes. No one has been held accountable until today. We're talking about the Global Fund and the HIV, where we have also the donors now retracting because the issue of corruption is in there. And it has been so heavily steeped within the Ministry of Health when it comes to accountability. We've had medical or medicine expiring, also going down through the tubes, because from the counties, there's lack of medicine. But from the storage here, the expiring in the facilities there. Dr. Jikao, how much do we also engender the trust of Kenyans with SHIF?
He was actually there, so as DMS.
Well, DMS. At least we managed. Let me go down, but history a bit. In 2005, I think you were in Parliament.
Yes.
When Parliament passed the social health insurance. Let me say that is what eventually went worldwide and became UHC. President Kibaki then declined to sign it into law. And these reasons were really two, and they still persist. One, our health facilities are not good enough for you to apply this. Two, there are very many Kenyans that are so poor that the government will not be able to pay for them. Now, those situations, have they really changed? Now, we have actually signed it into law, what he declined. It means we must, therefore, in my mind, do what he said we should. That time I was there, we were actually given more money. The first target was to improve health facilities and then be able to pay for the indigents. I hope that will be done. Now, we have not done well, because wherever there have been scandals, nobody has ever gone to jail, nobody has ever even paid back. When you talk of the COVID, even the promises we have made, like you are saying, this G2G, importing edible oil directly, and so on, they have not worked. So I feel in my mind a little afraid that we may not, and maybe are being modest, that unless we change drastically, it will not work. Because the task is big. And what we must do in the Ministry of Health, I'm saying this, I hope they're listening, they must stop business interests. People at the top must face whoever is saying business interests. You know why KEMSA and NHIF have not worked before? The issue is not at KEMSA. It is not at NHIF. It is at the ministry not letting the boards and the CEO they have appointed to work freely. I'm saying this with confidence. So they must now say, cut all business interests. I know there's a lot of money in health, but those people there should focus on service delivered. They shouldn't care who gets the business. I don't know whether we have people in the system who can allow that to happen. If we do, this thing can be done. Let me tell you, in my early days, as a doctor, my younger days, I transferred patients from Aga Khan to Kenyatta because Kenyatta was a better facility. By 78, 79, when my first daughter was delivered, the maternity in Kenyatta was actually better than in Nairobi Hospital. And I was an intern in Kisumu. I was transferring children from Aga Khan in Kisumu to what is now Jaramogi was then Rush. It is possible, it can be done, but business interests must be curtailed. Service to the people must be important at the very top. If we do that, it is doable. If we don't control that, then the business interests will run us out. You know, a lot of money is like rotten meat and flies. If there's meat, a lot of flies will come. So if there's a lot of money and you're not careful, you must get a good thing for swapping out flies. So you can't
Dibal, right now we have over 4,000 doctors who are unemployed in the country.
Indeed.
We have registrars who are specializing in University of Nairobi, all the universities here, who are specializing in critical fields, care fields, who are committing suicide because they don't have a job. They have to pay for their fees, which is big, and they just can't make it. So we are rotten in that side. In the healthcare, we have not taken care of our health workers.
Our nurses actually, they're being exported.
Nurses are now leaving the country. Doctors are leaving the country. Doctors are doing the MLE, IMLE, and the PLAB, which is British, UK exams and American exams, and they are leaving the country in their droves. And with the other thing that we have to do, and I don't know how we're going to do, is take back, claw back, and take back health from the devolved units and take it back to the central government. The county governments are utter and absolute failures when it comes to healthcare.
But Dibala, I know I've talked, but let me say, when we improved Garissa,
yes,
it was an element of devolution. I think it is just how we do things. You know, that is when we introduced this thing called the FIF.
Yeah.
And Garissa, we put a board. And the board had local people. Don't know whether
very good people.
And then
a late Maalim Idris.
Then the doctor we put there,
yeah,
and your wife.
Yes.
But she was not there because of that, because she was a good doctor.
Absolutely.
And we put the committee, and we put the board, and we put the health management team. It worked.
It worked.
So even these doctors are not being employed. Nurses were not being employed. If this money which is coming is applied properly, it will provide the money to employ
jobs.
them.
Yeah.
And the goodwill, at that time, let me tell you, the goodwill was there at the headquarters. From only 2 doctors in a PGH, one administrator, the superintendent, who was and one other doctor. In 3 years' time, they had 20 doctors, 16 doctors, 20 interns. It was a teaching hospital, and how many consultants? I think about 6 or 7 consultants were there. So with the right goodwill, we are not short of resources. This country has resources.
And let me say, and when we started, there were only 700 doctors. And let me tell you what happened. The government advertised. Not a single doctor applied. Around 2,000. We just said we must improve the payment and the conditions of doctors. By 2005, he said,
yes,
we are doctors. We had even opened the faith-based services to actually train interns. So we have the ingredients are there. This money can be the biggest ingredient, but the management and integrity,
satisfaction,
and commitment to the welfare of Kenya.
That's where the Senate comes
and
in.
The best consultants were asking to be taken to the most remote places, Garissa, Wajir, anywhere, because the ministry was run very well. And he was there after you left Kimani. Is it Kimani who came?
Yeah,
after Kimani came, a fantastic guy. It was basically, before him was Professor Meme.
Yes.
And it was essentially, you could get
Meme, Muga,
yourself, and you know, the other thing is that the donor community would be very happy to have a success story. So I remember that time in Garissa, the offers were from all over. They were literally saying, Garissa, my wife was telling them, no, sorry, I have enough. This is going to be an overcapacity. So the money is there at the national level, the resources, the goodwill is there, the doctors are there, the dedicated patriotic medical staff are there, the nurses are there. We just want to have a proper leadership in this country that makes sure that the resources are taken where they are and things are managed exactly the way they managed Garissa those days.
Right, and that's where the Senate needs to come in so that we don't have cases of non-carcinogenic wheelbarrows. Being also deployed within the counties as well. I mean, that really goes and insults the intelligence of Kenya truly. If we have such caliber of leadership with the non-carcinogenic wheelbarrows, I don't know where they went.
Let me just say this, on the issue of...
But my question was, I was just saying that as a by the way, my question was, if we go by the bottom-up economic transformation agenda and the heightened expectation that was there prior to the elections, that you created such a high level of expectation for Mwananchi, and then there has been a dribs and drabs in delivery of those plans because of time. And you ask him, can you give us time? Can you give us 6 months? And another person comes, can you give us 3 years? How then do we handle this? Because I can see this is a powder keg waiting to explode if it's not handled very well. For me, I'm trying to compare with the two, with Better and SHIF.
For me, first of all, I think if it is managed properly, the political and the management of the funds themselves, if it's done properly, this is going to be a game changer. And that's what the president has said. And what I like about this particular president is that he takes the lead on his businesses, on his agenda. Like the way he has taken the lead on affordable housing, I see him also taking the lead on this matter. I think it's under his microscopic check. So, and I'm sure he's listening to all this that we are saying and many other people who are talking to him and his experts and his advisor on health. So I think it is going to work well because it is a very important pillar in terms of the manifesto that we gave as UDA and Kenya Kwanza Coalition. But I wanted to say something also on the issue of whether, this health should go back to the national government. I wanted to say that for us, I think both at the Senate, majority of us, I think, and for me in particular, like in Tana River, I believe that when the doctors and the staff and the hospitals are looked at closer from within the county headquarters, the service delivery is likely to be better over time, so that the CEC in charge of health can quickly do rounds in person to hear what the health centers are saying from Kipini all the way to Madogo in Tana River County, as opposed to the boss in Nairobi, who, for him to travel, just to travel to reach Tana River, he'll be very tired because he's not used maybe to long travels. And then even before he comes to Tana River, there's Mombasa, there is Kilifi, there is Malindi. By the time he's reaching Tana River, he's just been given so many problems. he has enough on his briefcase to go back. So I think management of health should be left to the counties because the eyes are nearer. But in terms of the policy and whatever, like it has been said in the Constitution, the policy direction for the national policy, I think the CS should really manage this well. And then the nitty-gritties, they can go to the county. And I'm sure this is one thing that we are going to deliver as an administration, because it is critical. And when people see we are doing well in this, I believe they will give us another chance in 2027. Yeah.
Right.
Let me just say one thing. Let me just say, the link between the national government and the county government, I think there's something that maybe Honorable Mungatana can look at. The relationship between the Secretariat of the Council of Governors and the Intergovernmental Technical Relations Committee, I think there's an issue there we should look at. One is established by law and by constitution. The other is an administrative. In my mind, these two things don't seem to be working together because we should, health development can work better. When I was director of medical service, I always hoped that people at the periphery were doing everything and I was just doing policy. Now it has come. And even this FIF we are doing today, we did it in 2000. We did a version of it in 2005, and it gave autonomy up to dispensary. And we proved that the money that was managed at the dispensary, the Facility Improvement Fund, worked better than even the money that was managed at the district accounts. So it should be devolved further, so that even from the county itself, these facilities should actually also be given autonomy. And how come schools are run by boards and the principals and not from the ministry, and the accounting is there? Why can't we do that with health facilities?
But already
with somebody at the accountant.
No, we just also read the story, and we have all this altercation between the governors and the Ministry of Education regarding the ECD, that the requisite expertise also is not being realized.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something we missed. When we have the Commission for the Implementation of the Constitution, the other counterpart administratively was the Transition Authority. The Transition Authority didn't do a good job, like the Constitution for Implementation. When it was replaced by the Intergovernmental Relations, this one itself, in my mind, is now where the relationship between it and the Secretariat of the Council of Governors is not making us see the results. And I think we should look at this even legally and make the relationship between the county government and the national government functional, looking at the service of the people.
Right. I don't know if this is the proper
time. So we don't need
this topic of G2G, or we reserve it for another day after we've done. But I just want to know, first of all, we tell the crack. I think we've given a commendable stock on the issue of SHIF, so we're here to see what will be the way forward regarding also that particular legislation, if it will come to the National Assembly and bicameral at the end of the day. Government to government, we thought that will be a good cushioning for Kenyans to realize at least the pain at the pump, but that has not happened. The dollar is still, skyrocketing and going higher and higher. We've hit the 160 mark. This is historic in this country. It's never happened before, and it seems there is no relief looking ahead, because also the government has said we must leave it to free fall, or they've come again and say we have to intervene. Has the G2G failed, Faramali? Then we come to Dazo Mungatana, because I know you have a rejoinder. According to what we had from the publications, it has flopped.
Well, to be honest with you, ordinarily, government to government should be very good for the people. But we don't know exactly what happened, exactly how it was negotiated, and exactly who is implementing what. If the G2G itself was negotiated in such a manner that we're going to get a very good deal for Kenyans, but that deal has gone into private, what do you call, arrangements, or whether it, I don't know. But to be honest with you, somebody has got to do a serious write-up on that.
Serious write-up.
So
there are a lot of questions hanging around.
Yeah. A lot of questions that are hanging.
Which ideally shouldn't be. If it's a government to government, it should be very transparent even to the public.
Absolutely.
Because these are public resources which are being stocked in this as well.
Absolutely.
So does that frustrate you that you do not even have this information yourself?
There are a lot of things
that
we don't have any information. You see, let me tell you one thing. G2G, by the way, has been there from the very word go.
Yeah.
I tried to get involved in it myself in 1998, I can't remember, 99, somewhere around there. It's been there. It's been there for the longest, and we used to get it from the Nigerians one time, I remember. But it's always been there. We negotiated, as, very concessionary, price that essentially, but always individuals used to plug themselves into it and make the kill out of it. Throughout. I remember it was 50,000 metric tons those days when I tried to, as a businessman myself, I was in the energy sector, and we couldn't go far with these big multinationals also who were involved in it in one way or the other on behalf of the countries that were, Glencoe and God knows all those other big companies. So it was there, even when we were there as a deputy speaker, it was there. It was there. And
right.
When Biwott was the Minister for Energy, it was there many years back. So one needs to do a serious write-up on that. There are a number of areas, issues that have always evaded the public microscope. And one needs to do a serious piece on that. A very powerful investigative, what you call journalism that bears out everything. To
find out what is the
truth. That goes all the way back, yeah.
Let me just say this, Dibala. The negative headline that was in the People, not People Daily, but the Business Daily, that the G2G has flopped, was in fact a misinterpretation of the facts that were represented to the IMF by the Kenya government. Kenya government was asking for the EFF, the Extended Fund Facility, and they're also asking for the ECF, the Extended Credit Facility, which they successfully got $684.7 million, which, like we were saying last week, that we were expecting that sitting, and the approval was given, which is a big relief to the country. Now, when you are asking, it's just like in court, when you're asking for those, you make filings. And in one of those filings, they said that they are wary of continuing to give backing to the G2G oil deal because it was a temporary measure to help stabilize the demand on the dollar that was there in the country. Okay? So they said that there were some distortions on the rate of the dollar because actually government had intervened because the dollar was just going higher and higher for the Kenya shillings. Why? Because every end of month, using the open tender system, the OTS, as opposed to the G2G, the OTS meant every 30 days, Kenya had to get $500 million for the oil importer who wins the open tender to buy the oil. And then when he buys, he now redistributes it to local domestic market and also to our regional re-export market. Naona hiyo scenario. So there was only one guy who would win the open tender system. Now government now came in because we are saying, no, we can't be giving every 30 days we have to come up with $500 million. It is stretching the Kenya shillings and it is on a free fall. So they came in. What it did is to give us a credit facility of 180 days. And Professor Njuguna, in clarifying what the Business Daily had said on Friday, he actually said that 180 days, it removed the pressure by 30% on forex demand for the dollar, which is very good. So it is true there's been still a fall, despite the national government intervention to help the shilling through that G2G arrangement. There's still been a fall, but the fall since that time to now is about 20%, you know, to now 160.97, where it is now. But it is better than government doing nothing. But the government again is saying that at the end of it, there were some backings the government had to give to the three oil importers now, the three companies that they were relying now to bring the oil to Kenya. Now, those backings, because of rollover risks, you know, we back it with government, you know, securities. They don't want to continue with that forever. It was supposed to be a temporary measure. But then now what the headline speaks, they say, oh, government is getting off because the deal has failed. It has not failed. In fact, they extended it to the end of 2024. But after that, the government wants now the normal trading to take place so that the shilling finds its value, its level in the market. So what I'm saying is that it is incorrect to give the impression that that deal failed. That deal really helped the economy at the time. Given that there was such a huge demand on the dollar, we would be talking about 200 and going towards 250 at this time if we had left without any government intervention. And you see, government in economics has the responsibility to intervene when there's a problem.
Right, thank you.
You cannot just leave it to the air. So yeah. I think it's a good deal, and I think what they did was wonderful for this country, and it is also good for them to start thinking of exiting, because you cannot continue to intervene in the market forever. Otherwise, you'll create distortion, and then you start dealing with false shilling values.
Right, which now we don't know what is the value of our shilling. Is it overvalued or is it distorted? All right.
My worry about it.
Yeah, could we also just briefly, because we are super time,
if it works for us, and now what is coming out from what Honorable Ngatare said and what I read when Minister Njuguna was talking, that it is like now a conditionality from the IMF that now this is something we have to now think of coming out in order for us to get that extended facility. Then I'm extremely worried, because it is not the needs of our people that is being considered, although the extended facility may. But we have always known that when these international funding agencies force conditions on you, it has not worked well. G2G, if it works, as is being said, and we are the people have just started noticing its effect, if that is the effect, that the cost of oil is coming down. Yeah. Is that the time to say we are now stopping? If it is working well, in order to get funding from outside. That's my concern. And I also do not know what were we don't know this fact, what were the conditions that, under what conditions were the companies that are working on behalf of G2G? What were their conditions? Their companies, their business people, what were their interests? Did those really take into consideration our need as a country? So as we said earlier, some of us need to now get more information on this G2G, who was doing it, how it was being paid, were the gains being passed on to the citizen at the pump.
Thank you. Right. Paramalim, your closing remarks? Briefly.
My closing remarks, we are going through some difficult times, there's no doubt about that. Our economy isn't doing that well. We have had a very reckless borrowing over time, and I'm talking about the last 10 years. We are shackled way down by those debts. But the worst thing that can happen is for you to default in those obligations. The moment you default in that, the bilateral financial institutions are going to pull out. So you're now subject to the vagaries of the market itself. So you have to go to private banks to go and borrow. And once that does, they are basically, they are there as predators. They are piranha. They come to, suck blood out of you. That's why you see economies like the one of Greece, like one of Argentina, like many others, literally came down crashing. I think so far so good. We managed our debt, what do you call them, repayment very well, and I'm inclined to believe that from the look of things, we'll be seeing some light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you.
So increasingly, I think this is an opportunity for us as a country to come together.
Thank you.
This is not an opportunity for us to begin fighting over opposition and the government and playing the politics of
For me, my closing remarks would be that the basic fundamentals are looking good and people should go back to investment. You know, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Fuel prices are coming down. Food prices are coming down. The trade imbalance is shrinking in this country. And I'm sure we're going to manage the value of the shilling over time. The export have increased. In fact, today, if you read the papers, you will see the demand for flowers has gone even higher, vegetables even higher. So we have opportunity as a nation to invest in the correct sectors.
Thank you.
And the economy will pay over time.
Right, thank you. Thank you.
I was in JKA last night, and what really impressed me is the number of passengers who are coming in and getting out of the country, which means there's a little bit of
going on.
Serious, serious what you call activity going on. So let's pray for our country.
Thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate your insight this morning, and we hope to see how that will turn out this week as we get to have information coming to hand, and how also we'll relay that to the public regarding NHIF. And I wanted just to clarify, was it 641, as you mentioned, of the $1 million that we extended?
684.7.
It's not 941
No, I'm talking about the in dollar form. In dollar.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. 941.
684. No, 941 if you add other.
With the resilience.
The resilience, whatever.
Sustainability fund.
But I'm talking about that particular one.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.